Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another special edition of the Skillet Archive interviews. And we're joined here by the one and only, the man who helped start it all, Mr. Dr. Ken Steorts. How are you
Hey,
doing?
doing great. How are you?
I'm great, thankfully. Let me just start by asking, how did you get into music? What was the driving force behind you getting finally into music?
Well, I was really no. There's no musical family or anything. My brother was ahead of me a few years in band, and I started playing trumpet in band. But I immediately was, we were into pop music. We were sit around and play records and do our top 40 countdowns on the weekends. And my whole life changed when I picked up a guitar at 16. Kind of started late, and all my dreams of being I was kind of a smart math kid, and then started playing guitar, and I was like done for. I'd been writing poetry all my life, since I was, in grade school, and was find out later I was really writing songs, singing and stuff while riding my bike and all that. So I think it was always part of me, and more of a songwriter than a pure musician, but yeah, that did it for me. I paid $40 for a guitar, amp, strap, pick, and cord.
And what was your first band experience, be it either as a trumpet player or as a guitar player?
Well, I played in middle school band, all that stuff, but I would write like Ozzy tunes on trumpet, stuff like that, transcribe metal.
Mhm.
But really, the drummer that I bought the guitar from, he and I started a band. We did like Rush covers and prog rock stuff, and the real bands, I forgot our name actually. We played, oh, well, when I was 16, I was 17, played in a band called Limit down in Mississippi. And first live performance was Vandenberg, a Vandenberg tune, if you know them. They're not well-known metal. A song called, what was that song? Anyway, I can't remember the name of the song. But anyway, yeah, just playing high school bands, Limit, and some other band for talent shows, stuff like that, high school.
And what was the first real band that you were really committed to? And I mean, after high school, after the whole teenage experience, what was the first band that was, okay, I'm going to take this seriously?
I think it was Urgent Cry, which was the Christian metal band in the early 90s that I joined as sort of a second guitar player, and pretty soon became the main writer, with the singer, kind of writing songs and doing shows at camps and Christian ministry stuff. That's the first one I was really serious about. Was in the 90s, early 90s.
And Argent Cry must have been, what, 91, 92 maybe?
Maybe even 93. It was past we were sort of a metal band after the fact. It was a little, grunge was starting to come in, and we were still metal. But we had a great singer who could cover all the Striper stuff. So we played like legit Christian metal.
That's awesome. Yeah, the grunge era kind of really took over in the 90s, and it was swim or drown.
Yeah.
And Orchard Cry, you were there for until 95, if I remember correctly. And what was what was the experience you gained there? What was the main items that you got with you from that band?
From that band, I didn't grow up in the church, so I didn't have a lot of experience with Christian camps or really Christian bands doing ministry. So it was kind of new to me. I played on a worship team, but I didn't really know about the experience of being a Christian growing up as a teenager. I went to one Christian camp because I liked a girl, but that was about it. And so became a Christian my freshman year of college, and then these guys knew we played all the Christian places, alcohol recovery clubs and little dives, and So the experience really that helped me later with Skillet was that Urgent Cry played a lot of ministry shows. Several hundred people, just a total unknown band, but learned how to do that well.
Let me touch on that first. How did you get saved in the first freshman year of college? What was the what took you to God?
Yeah, I was a kind of a good kid by default. Somehow, I always said I was real into philosophy and trying to live a good life and all that. I liked who Jesus was, but the church, I was a long-haired kid, like church wasn't really very welcoming. And my freshman year in college, somebody on campus gave me a book, G.K. Chesterton book called The Everlasting Man, which is my favorite book to this day. And it was like a combination of apologetics with intelligent, ultimately it's a faith in God. You're not going your brain is not going to be the answer. You're not going to figure it out. You're going to have to submit your life. And I was just I was ready for Jesus. I feel like, I always said, I was ready for it to be real. And my girlfriend actually led me to the Lord my first year in college. And I immediately, I went and got baptized. I kind of figured out that the church was a little bit not biblical. So I found a church that was a little more solid, and never missed a Sunday after that. I mean, I'm just totally, I love the church. I got no qualms about growing up in the church, and been through a lot of ministry years since then. So.
And let me touch back on Urgent Cry. 95, there is a show on YouTube actually on Urgent Cry live at the 704B Club, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the poster said that was one of the last shows before you left, but you didn't leave Urgent Cry immediately to Skillet. You started Finger Paint. How was that transition of time? Sorry.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of cool because there was already a little bit of a tension in that we were more metal and there was a lot of alternative bands around.
Mm-hmm.
And although that appealed pretty well to the larger ministry audience, like as far as what was current music, I was always a little more punk rock, like new wave and stuff from the 80s, and raw, like never played a Paul Reed Smith. Sorry, everybody. Never played a Mesa. It's always like, I like dirty stuff. And so the lead singer, this is crazy. He was an amazing metal singer, and he still plays to this day, but he got an opportunity to sing with the Blackwood Brothers, which is total gospel quartet, right?
Yeah.
And he took that opportunity, and it was the three of us, and we just said, man, let's just play all the stuff you're writing, Ken, and I'll be the singer, and Kylie was the great melodic background singer on bass, and we forged forward with Finger Paint with a small F, always with a small F, just like the beat, small letters. And I just found sort of a freedom to do this. Is what I really loved, was a trio where I'm just messy and covering all the parts and writing songs and singing, screaming, whatever it may be. And that's how we did a tour with Funky Dynamo, actually, and 2-3 pieces. I played guitar for Funky Dynamo on the tour, and we did a lot of ministry. 704B, I was like the sound guy for 704B and the newsletter guy, so I was deeply embedded in that scene. And Finger Paint was a fresh take on. I think it was melodic but flipping heavy,
For those who haven't heard Finger Paint, there is the tape available on YouTube, and you can hear the earliest versions of Saturn and Paint, and others more. And what was the writing process behind those songs, and how did they get changed after with Skillet?
Paint was I wrote all of that. I don't remember the night of writing that song, but we worked that up for Finger Paint. probably in rehearsal. Yeah, I typically bring all the chords and words and melody, and then just have like the drummer and people find their parts. But they were a big part of that, just bringing the song together. Saturn has a pretty special story, actually, and we have a 10-minute short film that was 95% made, never released. It's a short film about the story of Saturn being written. One day I'll finish all this stuff. You're going to be an inspiration to me. But Saturn, I was working a job that was my job as Skillet started everything. I was installing alarm systems. I was driving a van around, and I was inspired by this concept of Saturn being like that faith that we have. And I pulled the van over and wrote the lyrics straight from top to bottom on the steering wheel of the van, and just during a work day. And the song was sort of like Pachelbel's Canon, like very simple chords. I was a composition major. I got my master's degree in composition, so that's a super easy composition. But I was like very into bleeps and blurps and all kinds of styles of classical music and stuff. But I thought it was too simple. But it just a super simple melody, and the story kind of goes, well, we played it, and you have the version of it where it's me singing, and it's just out of my range, but when we made the first Skillet record, they came back, Dana Key came back and said, hey guys, this is amazing, but we need one more single, something that's anything you got in the pocket. We played the 20 songs. I guess those are out there somewhere, our original demo tape and all that stuff. Well, I don't know if our demo tape is out there. I'll talk to you about that in a second. But the one with Eternal Sounds Eternal did you? I don't know if that's out there. You must have all that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'd like to hear that, actually. I don't think I have a copy. I'm in my warehouse here. That's why the background's weird, but I got tons of stuff here. But the Saturn was like that. This story may be already out, but stop me if it's too long. But they just said last day of recording. I'm like, well, I have this song that I think it's too simple, and it's like I started singing Saturn. We got to the chorus the very first time, and they stopped me and said, okay, let's record. Let's get in there and record this. This is the one. And that's why it barely changed, other than a few, effects and slide guitar, stuff like that. John singing it. I think I may have even sang it live a couple times with Skillet. I mean, John didn't know it. I'm not saying that's how it was, but we went into the record believing we were going to co-sing, and by the time we recorded the actual record, Eddie DeGarmo had talked to me about not singing, and I'm like, all right, I get it,
I'll save it for life.
Yeah, I'll just be the screamer, so it's fine. It is a good move, really good move. But so that one ended up relatively unchanged, and Paint was a late add too. We didn't play that a lot. Well, we had, Skillet played one show before we were signed.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if people know that. We played one show.
I didn't know that. No.
25 minutes opening for Fold Zandura, December 1st or 3rd. I think it's December 1st of 95. And Gyro goes, is that all? You guys play some more or whatever, we're like, we don't know anything else. Like, we just got together. And our manager sent that tape in and got us signed to a deal. So we kept writing, but at our first show, John never played Paint before we made the record. John never sang Saturn, so we kind of made those, adapted them to the studio pretty much straight off the finger paint stuff,
So talk to me how Skillet got together the first time. How I know the general story that your pastor brought you guys together, but how was the after? How was you three mingling together, seeing what works, what doesn't work, how you guys connect musically?
Yeah. Initially, it was mostly, I'll just tell the story real quick for whoever doesn't know the super quick version. Rick Miller talked to me and John and said, both you guys have these trios, but those guys aren't going to be doing music professionally. You guys are serious about this. Why don't you play with Trey, the drummer? And we didn't even know Trey in the church. And our church was small. We didn't know Trey existed, much less was a drummer. And then play with Matt Browning that was in Seraph as a keyboard player, write some stuff together and all that. And pretty quickly, well, we hit it off with Trey. He was a lot more, he hadn't played in a while, and he was a lot more of sort of a frat boy and a, pop Bon Jovi guy more than we were, and but Matt was not a good fit long term. I think just he and John already had been through teenage years playing together, and kind of egos and writing and songs, and I think it was probably good that he didn't really stick around for whatever reason. But the three of us just practiced in the church late at night, and John and I had that one tour where I played with him. So he was quite a bit younger, and I was, but we got to we really bonded on that trip up to Chicago and Kenosha and Minneapolis and all that, the Finger Paint Funky Dynamo tour. And we found we had some stuff in common. Really what we had in common was King's X and, prog rock a little bit, all three of us. And we were interested in something off kilter. And that's how we came up with that first demo tape, was something that sounded like Queen meets Blondie or something crazy, the early stuff, punk rock Queen or something.
And how would you describe the musical size between you three? Maybe you have one particular style. Maybe I know John on bass is very funky, or was very funky at least,
Yeah.
and Trey has a really good swing. But how would you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, I always said, funk, and just pop rock, Bon Jovi. I was punk rock. I didn't consider myself a punk rock guy, but punk rock in the sense of messy and new wave and sort of a little bit older. I'd already done years of industrial and heavy and metal and all that, and it's just not enough, all the lead stuff. I kind of think of my style, I'm similar age to Kurt Cobain. Like my experience was very similar. I had never heard, strangely, this is completely strange. I've said it before in interviews. I never heard Nirvana before the first record. I was in class. I just finished my master's degree, like 6 years of not listening to pop music. Like I missed the entire long-haired Michael Jackson era, all this stuff, and just came out on the other side playing with a metal band. And then quickly, it's just that my sound was what Kurt Cobain listened to all his life growing up. So it's you may have heard it in a store somewhere, but I just didn't. I was not into the scene. And John was much more pop than he let on. First of all, he listened to Madonna and stuff that I just never liked, And so it's a cool mix that we come together kind of on that King's X kind of good harmonies, very much into worship, original worship. We all were writing original worship music. And Trey was just barely a musician and coming back in, and good natured. All three of us kind of leader type guys that just wanted to see something work. And so it's a God moment for us, really, just to bring that kind of variety of talent together, however much people think we're talented or not, it worked,
And talk to me about the songwriting process between you and John. You mentioned before that John had a bit of ego issues with Matt. And did that happen with you too? Was that ever a thing? Or was it more like, we got these songs, let's see how we can make them work?
Well, okay, don't print that I'm like, John and Matt were at it with the egos too much, but it's being two dudes, two guys that are writing. I think is inevitable that your ego is there with music, with songwriting. You believe that you have the answer, and that's probably part of the goodness of it. John and I didn't really have this, especially early on in the band. We were just like, we weren't even really close brothers yet, right? We were just like, okay, let's do this. Here's what I got. Here's what you got. Well, I like this. You can sing that better. That sounds cool. It was really easy on the first record because we were excited about what each other was writing. I think, that's how I would say it.
Mhm.
No ego at all. It was more just other than let me push a little harder and be messier. We had a longer version of Boundaries with like time shifts and change, stuff that we loved, but the label didn't, stuff like that. Oh, that might exist already. Sorry, out there in the demo sphere. But yeah, we were just putting stuff down and playing. Yeah, not much ego. Now, second record, I was struggling on the road, being the manager, the road manager, all this stuff. I was struggling to write much. So there I got a little less scarce, and his music moved towards the industrial stuff, which I don't favor really. Just I'm more of the raw guy. So I don't know if it's ego. It's part of the ego, I suppose, like wanting songs a direction, sort of figuring out sophomore record. But he was obviously emerging, and with Corey especially, emerging as like the lead guy, and I was the backbone and the presence and the consistency and the older guy, and yeah, it was fine. But I was more disappointed in how I wasn't able to ride on the road sort of the way I had easily ride all the time before. It became difficult for me. So that's maybe my story more than we never really had big ego things on this. And Trey was, for all his ability to lead and readiness to take charge, he just around the music, he served the songwriter and the song. He was great.
And so the band forms around 95, the tail end of 95. And by 96, you already sang. And by March, you got the Sun Eternal demo that ended up becoming the Right Side of Your Head demo. How was that process, recording it and spreading it out and doing the shows?
Yeah. I'll give you how I remember it. And John will correct me if he ever hears this, because he's got the lockdown memory. But December, we played the show. The cassette had already been, the Sounds Eternal cassette of 4 songs had been sent to Eddie DeGarmo. And he contacted Rick at some time and said, man, how do you do this, Rick? You're a pastor somewhere, and you got these guys, this weird music that's got some kind of possibility here. And he had met John when John was young, because Eddie's from Memphis. And he said, he convinced us to work with Ardent instead of Forefront, and that because of a band, it just so happened that a band, forget their name, I think Sarah John, Jahn. I think Sarah John, maybe not. Don't quote me on that. They had been they had demoed at Ardent, and they decided to go with Capitol or something big. They got a big opportunity. And so a place opened up on the roster at Ardent. Dana wasn't particularly a heavy music guy. To be honest, Ardent wasn't a heavy music guy. Memphis is not a heavy music city. It's more of a like groove and original music, but a great original music production city. And so they got us in, from what I remember, we got signed in January, and they set aside 2 weeks. Was that February or March? But we had some kind of booking agent, because we played. See, my son was born. I was just married. Okay, so that's the following year. And that really, we kind of made the record in 2 weeks with Skid and Paul. They were fairly new working together, and they were talking like, man, this is the Grammy winner. They were like, they loved the record. We loved the record. We were blown away by everything. We loved it all. And then it was like, okay, we'll put this out in 6 months. So it's like, okay, go back to work. Just like go crawl attics and wire alarm systems and play 704B, write some more music. And we came out on Halloween. We were on a tour to support that. By that time, we had a booking agent, Lisa Jones Agency. And that first tour, people may not know this, may know, I don't know. Alan Aguirre of Scattered Few was booking shows under a different name, his own band, and under a different name as the booking agent. And he was like, he's Alan Aguirre, so he's a funny guy. Awesome. I love him to this day. But weird guy, weird music, and Skillet was like very plain music to him. But we did a tour up in 4 shows, Mishawaka, up in the Wisconsin, Chicago, Indiana area. Right around, that was our first tour ever. I guess people know that, but and that was my first chance to try to get money at the end of a night and all that stuff, and go really drive in a van up same place we had been before. Upper Midwest has always been good to Skillet.
What would you say that Skillet stopped being a side project and really became something, the primary thing? When would you say that was the moment of realization for you, maybe, or for the band as a whole?
Okay, yeah. So probably Fingerprint continued playing in '96. Even we probably played a few shows 704B. I'll have to look at I'm going to try to get some of the archives with you out of this warehouse. But when we were signed, that became a big deal. January, when we did the recording and we knew there was something coming out, I think we knew we had to. We never discussed it. I don't remember having a single conversation with me, Rick, and John. Like, should we really do this? It was always like, man, let's take the next. Like, what do we do now? I mean, maybe it's naivety or just, Rick was our pastor. We had 2 pastors at the church, real kingdom theology guys. They opened both of our minds in a different space, a different way, to the purposes of God, and that really has driven Skillet to this day. John and I, close friends instantly. We could spend 6-8 hours together tonight just hanging out chatting, because kingdom theology, purpose in the world, God's creation made us to have meaning, not just what you typically get, especially in the South. You're getting Bible Belt, you versus Satan, don't sin, blah blah blah. And we were like, no, we're about something bigger. We're writing worship stuff. I was the worship leader in the church. He was youth group leader. We were in ministry. We're like, the only question is, how can we get back home to my wife and my baby, and get back home to the church and be here? Local church is everything. We're the same people 30 years later. It's crazy. So I don't know. I'm philosophizing more than you asked, but there wasn't a point where we just had to anguish over, is this going to be what we do? It was, now I left something behind I really loved, which was the 3-piece punk rock, but the obvious hand of God was on, we believe, I would say we both believe to this day, that was God, the Holy Spirit was present in our live shows and everything we did. And that's, we were committed from the get-go. Now, there was a couple times where we're on the road and it was like, we're not making any money. We're not making any money. So what are we going to do to make money? I mean, John was substitute teaching, and I would like go install an alarm system or like do maintenance or something. And, but guys in other Christian bands were working at McDonald's signed bands back in that era. They were like working McDonald's and they go on a tour. So we're like, hey man, it's Christian rock. God has got us out there, and we were in from the beginning, feels like.
And when did you guys quit your works to dedicate your time to Skillet full time?
When we got off that first tour, I'll get a little sketchy, but in early 90, must have been 97. By early 97, we had done the first tour. The record was out. There, we were planning. We were getting all the festivals for the following year. We were going to play the opening stage at every Edge stage, Barely There stage, whatever it was called. And that was all set up. And we did our first tour down to Houston. I remember my son was 6 weeks old. That was February, March of 97. And his first tour was 6 weeks, and we were in a white van. And that was all we were doing from that point forward. Probably early 97, there was nothing much left to do except make this thing really work. And yeah, so I mean, I guess we were all in. That was our only thing. We definitely weren't playing like other bands and stuff like that. We were going to GMA for the first time, April of 97, walking through, doing interviews, international stuff, planning our, we had global contacts because of our church network. We were going to start doing shows. Sort of, I mean, it's really, if you had a plan of how to start a band, it's not the way to do it necessarily, but it was homespun and well-meaning and barely financed by, Rick Miller's just keeping putting money in. I to this day, I tell people, you need about 60 grand behind you as a band. I've trained bands all day long still, 30 years later, I'm working with bands. You need somebody behind you that believes in your ministry that's going to be able to put in 50, 60,000 to get you off the ground. And you need to commit to it somehow. We made almost nothing our first year in ministry, but we had health insurance because Rick made us have it, and nobody else knew how to, no other band we knew had that. So we were like, I lived in my wife and I had bought a duplex, a 2-story house next to the church. We rebuilt, and I made an apartment. When I was off tour, I would just make an apartment and rent it out. And we rented out, rooms to other friends at like a music house, and just living the life, man. Bohemian life, I guess, of somehow eating still.
Let me ask you this. Being 96, the record is coming out. John is about to get married, if not married already. You are married and you have a child on the way. Was there ever a moment where you feel like, okay, if this goes, if this doesn't work, I can spend more time with the family, but if this works, I do have to stop, not stop, but maybe spend less time with my family, but I can provide for them better. And was John like maybe the same with Corey? Because he didn't have any kids at that time. He was just married. Was it ever like we're married men trying to provide, or was it more like we're musicians trying to just rock?
I'd go with the second one probably, because we really, I mean, they were so new, like they were so newly married, they were still trying to figure out life together. We had a kid on the way, and I mean, you're never as mature as you think you are, but I thought I was mature, 29 or something. So I think I couldn't speak to what John and Corey talked about behind the scenes, like making money, but to all of us, it felt like, and it seems like even to this day, that there was a calling and a timing from the Lord, and we were in ministry together, and it was a natural extension of our ministry at our local church, and we were committed and submitted to our leadership and the authority. We were not just a band, and I don't want it to sound weird, but we were just like, we're comfortable in our community. Mm-hmm. My wife's taken care of by the women of the church. Mm-hmm. We live next door to the church. We went through discipleship houses together. We discipled other people. We flow back in every 10 days and be on stage and lead worship like nothing was happening, because we weren't Skillet yet. We were just, hey, you got a record deal. And it was sort of like just a sweet, from what I remember, a sweet time of like, let's go out there and do it again. Let's do it again. and do what's needed because we're called to this space and God will take care of us. I don't remember ever thinking I'm going to make a whole lot of money from this band, or if I don't, I'm in trouble. Either one. Like, it was just, let's go for the thing that's in front of us. And for me personally, since you're interviewing only me, I thought, man, incredible honor every night to play and see God show up and play my own music and my own music I wrote with John and see God change people's lives. Unbelievable to this day. I think he would say the same thing. Unbelievable honor.
Did Joy ever come and tour with you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Joy came with Friedman on tour for about a year. I know we did I got pictures of Friedman riding in the van at, 6 months old, and out to the desert. So he went to the California shows, out to the high desert, probably Creation West once, maybe. Well, no, we didn't play Creation West early, played Creation East. They did the tours we did, I believe, with, what was it, Buck? Or we played some shows with Stavesacre, Project 86, the West Coast stuff up in the Central Valley and all that. They went on those early tours, but they ended up being, at 4:00. We check in at 1. By 4:00, Joy is at the hotel by herself with a baby, and I get in at 1:00. We leave at 6:00 to drive again, and we're all driving, like I'm driving. So she had a separate life with Friedman, and decided at some point we could figure this timing out eventually. It was like, hey, the baby's crying all day long in the van. She doesn't have a real life. She's got these single moms back in Memphis she takes care of, and she could just, build a community back there. So she started doing that. And that was better, but then that's, loneliness started.
Yeah.
But it's hard being in a van with 5-6 people. We had our sound guy with us, Tom. And it's hard to be in there with a lot of people and a baby starts going.
Yeah, I can imagine. I don't have a baby myself, but yeah, I can imagine it can be stressful sometimes. And I can't talk about the year 96 as far as the tour goes, but I do know that 97 was a whole lot more busy than maybe before. How was the weight of the schedule on you guys? Did it ever get overwhelming? Did it ever get too heavy, or was it more like, oh yeah, we have a full week of playing shows, let's do it?
We were excited about the shows. We really, the first thing you think as a young band, once you even have your record out, you're like, nobody's gonna book us. Nobody even knows who we are. And so it was better to be busy. Generally, we found out real quick that booking an independent band, or signed band, but a young band, means 10-hour drives every day in the US, and that's where, to this day, I've developed a whole system for training bands and communicating with bands and sort of launching bands that addresses the big issue bands have is with their management. And our manager was our pastor, and our booking agent was some people we really loved in Nashville. But you get out there in your 8th hour of driving, a 10-hour drive, 4 nights in a row, and you're like, I hate those people. What is wrong with these people driving us all over the place crazy? So you just have to know that you're going to be upset with your booking agent and your management and your label, because you are doing the work and they have no idea what it's like. And you're going to have to deal with that reality as adults at some point. And I help people get past that, know about it early on nowadays, to like, hey, you're going to be mad at me because you're going to believe I don't care that you're driving 10 hours, but basically there's nothing you can do about it. You're playing Wichita, then you're playing Cleveland. All right. That's who booked you. You know.
And yeah, 97 had also the first festival. You had Ictus Festival. You had Creation the first time. You had Extreme, I believe. Uh, you had Spirit West Coast. And I don't know how many more festivals, but it was a busy season for you guys summer. Uh, how was that first string of festivals for you? What was the vibe in the band?
Yeah, was Ictus the first one?
I believe so.
I
It
think
was in
it's
97.
yeah, I think it's they used to do it in April. I believe it was the first one of that year. Um, well, total wreck on weather, but freaking came unglued. The audience came unglued in that barn. The first show at Ictus. I don't know if I think there's a recording of the 5 Iron Frenzy show right after or before us, but that space just came unglued for Skillet, man. It was a total thrill to play the festivals. So we couldn't wait to get back to the next festival. Always something different, always disappointing, but like the actual show was, I can't believe hundreds of people we've never met that are not at our church and not in our hometown freaking love us and they're singing our songs. That's, other than getting on the radio, there's nothing, better than just people moshing to your song. And uh yeah, so I remember that festival well. Ictus. Creation East was side stage, not many people, but rabid fans. We were building our fan base. And that's a little bit of what my job sort of became, was panheads. I haven't talked to John about this. I believe I made up the word panheads, but anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, it was you.
Okay, I say that, but I've not put it in an interview. I don't know, but and so I know I was answering every email. Early days of the internet, I was building a merch store in the background, writing code and stuff I don't know how to do, and doing all the marketing stuff to our fan base, building the newsletter, the lists, and all that. Because that's just naturally me. I love communication. So, and I love, the globality of us and our church network was always like everywhere you are, be it, Bentonville, Arkansas, or Brazil, we are. You're our neighbors, you're our church, you're our family. Let's do it. So it was exciting to get out to places almost every time. I forgot what your question was originally, but it's better to be busy. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. And Skillet is at the time very well known for the ministry and the worship, but there was also people getting saved on the show. What was that for you to witness?
Oh, getting saved at the show?
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Well, that's the biggest honor in life, right? To lead somebody to the Lord. That's going to change everything about their whole existence, their family, their family's family. It's like nothing better than that in all of ministry. So we were, John's a born evangelist. That's, I'm not great at that, but being there on the scene, I definitely what we wanted to see. Exciting. And there's one show I remember in Tupelo where it was a crowded house. I don't remember when this was, but it was, of course, the early years I was playing. But these guys were pressing the stage. The stage was about 18 inches high. I mean, it was like we were in the crowd, basically. And a lot of those
Yeah.
early shows were pretty awesome because you basically just were high-fiving everybody. And, it was great. But we stopped. The place was too crowded. And John gave an altar call. He basically said, if you don't want to get saved tonight or whatever, if you don't want to step forward, just take 2 steps back so we can have room up here. And the whole crowd sort of moved back. And this one guy right at the front stayed right in that spot. And he was right there. And it was like the one guy. And I'll just never forget, like, that guy's life's changed forever. And so many other stories. That Saturn film, that short film that we do have in the can somewhere. That was the testimony of Naomi in Minneapolis, who, didn't take her life because listening to Saturn. Saturn came on the radio, you know, and she's like, I'm gonna live, and she comes out to shows and visits our family for years, you know, and stuff, and just becomes part of the story of people getting saved or giving their life because of your music. I love I read about it every now and then, you know, Skillet these days, somebody, you know, their life was saved. That's why John keeps doing it.
And let's talk now about the live sets. As far as you can remember, and I don't expect the exact order, but what songs did you usually play on that first tour besides the ones that we know on the record?
Oh, well, I might mess up times here. The only song we played, of course, we played worship songs, and we made them our own, and we had a couple of originals that almost made the record. One called "All of You," that we played, that I wrote. We played "I Changed the Room," which was like a reggae tune that never really got heavy, but it just was a neat part for the big fun part of this. Towards the end of the concert, we would do occasionally "I Changed the Room." When we were writing songs for the second record, the one I can remember I told you about in an email was "Tell Me, Give Me." We played that. People know that now, but there may be another one if I look down that list that we played. We test them out live. We test out songs that night, you know, when you have that luxury of playing something brand new and just jamming. You know, a lot of stuff we'd say, okay, we don't have the song ready yet, but let's do this after, you know, something after the altar call. Let's come in with this jam or something, and then see how it goes. And the big moments of the live show were the worship and "Safe with You." "Safe with You," we never played like the record again. I don't know if anybody's talked about that story, but
no, we haven't. No.
"Safe with You," I think that was on our cassette demo, right? The "Sounds Eternal."
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, I think that was one that, and it's all toms, tons of, you know, U2 level, early '80s toms, probably just going too much. Well, they made us sort of do a 1979 version. What's the band that plays 1979? Smashing Pumpkins. They sort of did like a Smashing Pumpkins version of "Safe with You" with a straight drum beat and all this. And believe me, I love it to this day. I worship to it. Love everything about it because I have incredible memories of "Safe with You." But we never played it like that again. No, we said, okay, you know, make a cool little song with it, whatever. But it's like, no, it's all just big toms, John, pop John, U2 John, you know, and then screaming "Safe with You" and people worshiping, hands up, coming unglued. And that was a moment, probably 3 moments in the early days were "Safe with You" every night, and the Promise Blender, the downbeat of the chorus, the crowd comes unglued, and just try not to hurt each other. And I dove out in the crowd a lot, I think, early days, until all the Baptist churches were like, hey, don't say the word dance and don't allow anybody to stage dive, and you'll be good tonight. And we're like, okay. And then when the opening riff of "I Can" at the end of the show, we would close out a lot with "I Can," and people knew it. And it was like, you know, when you play a riff and people start erupting in applause and screaming, you're like, I mean, why do anything else for a living? It's unbelievable, you know.
So "I Can" was always the closer then?
A lot of times it would be the closer or the fake closer. You know, I'll have to look at some of these early ones. I'm going to go through my stuff and get you some more lists, hopefully. But "I Can" was a good one that people knew. We may have done an opener with that before, but it's a really good closer because people it just ends with, you could go on. We went on 15 minutes after, you know, same riff sometimes, you know, just people going crazy.
Let me ask you this about the record itself, about the self-title, because as a musician myself, trying to figure out the songs and whatnot, and on the demo, let me put "Pain" for example, the main riff for "Pain," on record, it sounds like you're playing maybe on an octave or a seven string guitar or something. Because the main riff it's on D, it starts on the D chord, but it sounds really down. Like I don't know if it's a
Yeah,
drop tuning or if it's an octave. And it happens the same
yeah,
with the chorus for Promise Blender, which is B, G, B, and it sounds really low. And I'm not really sure what you're playing there in terms of equipment, if it's a seven string or if it's a octave pedal or something. And I wanted to ask you
yeah.
directly,
Okay,
what are
yeah.
you playing there?
You're going to need to give me a list of these questions later because I'll have to dig a little bit and find out from. I mean, Skid was amazing, handing me guitars. Like I'd be sitting there, we'd be like, okay, for this one, hand me this one, hand me. Okay, I got this beat up piece of junk scallop neck guitar that I like $100 guitar that I have. Let me do this on this. Let me, and we would just hand stuff around. I'm not much of a pedal guy, so they would bring stuff in. It's the first time we ever used baritone guitars. First time we ever used. I don't remember a seven string, but there may have been. I've never owned one. I think it was. I think it was octave pedal, probably, and a lot of layers. I mean, I would put 8 guitar layers on stuff, just to. But I would use my Rivera M100 head and cabinet with open back 12. Open back 12 30 watt, like a greenback type speaker, mic from the back and the front, and so that gets the crunch. And then there's some stuff, this has probably not been talked about, tangential to what you're saying, but it's not exactly. My guitar, my Strata Monster, I called it. It had it's an 82 Strat.
Mhm.
It would feed back from the head of the amp. If I had the Rivera M100 in the studio, I could play on top of it, and some of those squeals and growls and uncontrollable stuff was that head reacting with the pickups in proximity. But the low end, I would say the low end, everybody might remember better than me, but honestly, they were just handing me guitars at some points, and on Paint, I feel like it was an octave pedal that got that kind of process sound. With also that envelope follower or whatever, auto wah or something like that, that's kind of pinching the sound, space sound, whatever.
Yeah, I really like listening to the demos and then to the actual songs on the record because you can hear the differences, you can hear the evolution,
Yep.
and I wonder. We talk about this on the email, but I wonder how much of a difference was there between the songs on the record and live because, as I've told you, Skillet has this that it always sounds heavier live. And
Yeah.
was that a thing on your time on that first tour? Was that like I don't know any outros, any intros, any special things that you don't hear on the record?
We did take, certainly by Hey You, we were taking a mini disc on tour, and Trey was triggering tracks. But on the first record, so some of those things that were subtle effects or we thought were important, I would buy the pedal, or we'd buy the pedal for the record, and then I'd be like, okay, I got to take this on the road. For instance, Promise Blender verse, when I was, and it had this kind of reverse tremolo effect that goes and it cuts off like it's a little tremolo effect on the clean guitar.
Oh yeah,
That was a certain pedal, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was like a wah pedal, but it was red. It's a tremolo type pedal.
is it a Whammy?
What is it called?
A Whammy pedal by Digital?
That
Uh,
doesn't. That
yeah,
doesn't.
red.
It's a red one. That doesn't sound right, like the name, but I may be wrong. But so I would, it's a second wah pedal on tour.
Uh-huh.
It's sitting there next to my, we had friends make us metal box. We didn't have pedal boards. We didn't. I mean, dude, I'm not a pedal guy, and we didn't have pedal boards, and we would set all that stuff up and play every night. And eventually it'd be like, you know what, this is just not going to have that subtle effect. We're just going to barely. It became more important, I noticed, live, to move around, connect with the audience, play some semblance of the reggae pattern, try to stay on the chords on the upbeat while walking around and jumping around and hitting the downbeat of the heavy part. And that's, people didn't care about the octave below the others. In fact, it was just nastier to be not cleaner, but simpler live.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of been my philosophy. Maybe that was just me, but I think that is what we did because of me. The thing in the studio that was surprising, and this is a little production trick I've used ever since, is less distortion. A second track with less distortion makes it sound heavier. It has some certain attack to it that's really amazing. And so I did learn that different from my metal days. When I say I never played a Mesa Boogie, if I probably did on a fly-in date here or there, and I was like, I hate this thing, man. It just has to break up worse, like sound worse. And somehow one of my skills to this day is filling up a lot of room and playing the essential parts with some semblance of technique to sound like two guitars or a lot of stuff going on. And it's in my hands. I don't even know, but I naturally play the thing, and I songwrite around building songs where you think you're still hearing something and you're not, and then I come back to it, and then it's sort of building tracks that are not there. So we didn't get high tech very much. John learned, he got like probably a preamp, the little black box with the yellow ride amp, I forgot what it's called, but for his distortion. And then we tried out different stuff as well, but he probably had as many pedals as I did. Same as today with my bass player and the beat.
And let me ask you, I asked you this on email, but I want to ask you about the first record. What was the most challenging song to play live from that first record?
From the first record, most challenging. Gosh, I can't remember what I answered now, because from the first record, what did I say? Promise Blender or something? Or
no, you didn't. You told me about the second one. You told me about that.
Yeah. Maybe I didn't have one for the first one. It's anything with precision is what's hard for me live. So I guess I would say Beautiful Robe, the verse part, but I was so good at it. That thing, people have asked me a lot of times how I came up with it and all that stuff, but for some reason, I was really good at that riff. It was probably something, it's really quiet and Saturn, and I have to kick off into the solo, and it's super easy, but I'm like terrified. That as far as my feeling right now, what was hard to play was tender, clear, open, precise things. The heavy stuff, man, I don't really remember anything. I don't have one really. That's the heavy stuff. It's mostly detailed things that are probably hard for me, and it doesn't have to be difficult. It's just like trying to nail it exactly right. And in the middle of the show, you just got your mind going everywhere. So
you mentioned also, and that's also something that people can hear from the lives, that when I Ken started, everybody went crazy. But was there any other song on the set or songs on the set that when that first song started, people started going crazy because either it was a great song to play live, like for example, My Beautiful Robe for me is one of the best songs.
Well, that would be my answer, really. That if you knew Skillet in the early days, including, I don't know what John and Trey would say, but definitely for me, you just start playing My Beautiful Robe, and I'm just transported to a new place. Like the besides the words, if you sit there and listen to I'm sitting there playing a complex part, listening to the words and worshiping. Like I'm seriously every single night. And I'm not kidding, and I'm not bragging. It's like if you're paying attention and you're there for ministry and you're listening to those words and you're just imagining everybody catching the poetry of this stuff. And then I think we saw that transforming people's hearts,
Mhm.
and the heaviness of that riff somehow live. It doesn't come across on the record as much. It's nice and it's got a good tone on the record, but live it was unglued time. You start doing it and the guys at least go bananas.
Yeah, I like. There's a clip that I posted on. There's actually not the full show, but on 2005 they brought that song back, and there
Oh.
is yeah, and there's the chorus, and listening to it and seeing it being performed live, even if it's not with the original lineup, but just seeing the song live for me, it was I was headbanging in my room.
Yeah. Well, I've got to catch up with all the stuff that's out there. I haven't been, on point with everything going on, but I've always, I'm super proud of that era for sure. Love everything we did.
And let me ask, 97, it's also the year where Corey starts joining in on stage, I believe. What was her duties on that first tour on 97? Because you didn't have Hey You at that point. There wasn't a lot of keyboards. There wasn't a lot of synth on the first album. What was she doing besides the keys for I Can on the soft part?
Yeah. Well, let me let me first say, me and John both met Corey at the same time. She's a worship leader from her church that came down to our church, and we were both like, I was already married, but every guy in the room was like, yeah, and so she's an amazing leader, and since she was young, and so she came in. I mean, her duties were play these keyboard parts like they are on the record. I think that was pretty simple. Like first tour, play these keyboard parts, but she was so much more of the support for John and the vocal support, something totally new and different. Trying to think what she sang on early on. Maybe I don't remember what she initially sang on, but I'm sure there's video of that. But she, they had just invested in learning the keyboard stuff together the year before that. 90 throughout 97 before we made the record.
Mhm.
They worked at their apartment. I think it's probably all they did was work on keyboard stuff because they were ready for that next record. And we did some tracks still, some of the wild stuff that they put in, the Hey You tracks and stuff that they built in the studio. We put that triggered it by Trey, but she played all the parts. And then what I was getting to was she's an amazing worship leader, so she was there to play the keys for those ministry moments and sort of John preaching. She probably played some keys there a little bit. I don't remember how much. Wasn't like church service, but she probably it's better than electric guitar. I'm not much of I'm a worship leader when I need to be, but I'm not much of a strumming while the guy ministers.
Yeah.
So I think that became part of the role. But really it was recreating the record because she helped make it.
And it's 97 also. We're coming to the end of 97, and there's the record What Would Jesus Do that came out and had the first hint at Hey You in Whirlwind.
Yeah.
How did that came to be? How did you guys firstly write the song together, and then what was the process to saying, okay, we're putting this song on this album first to give everybody a hint of what's to come?
Yeah, first, like John brought it pretty ready, but I remember working through that song in practice and coming up with parts and building the song, and it was something really cool. I mean, my personal feelings would be that it was like, oh, I like stuff heavier, so I was like, oh, it's going to be more. It's not going to be heavy enough, and okay, well, this is a great message, great thing to put out. What they did on the second record, I don't know if this has been talked about much, and I'm not sure I didn't follow any re-releases or something like that, but they did not master the second record initially. So the sound, there was a philosophy at the time, and Ardent was a forward-thinking production company trying to be authentic in Memphis and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
They didn't master it because it was believed you could get just higher gain by not squashing everything. Which I have a degree in music production. I mastered my first record at Ardent long before Skillet. And I'm like, okay, makes some sense. It's not going to sound as compressed. We're like, okay, we're radical out there. Well, when you hear Whirlwind, I don't mean to draw attention to it, but John and I were so sorely disappointed. I think we heard it on our way to Minneapolis to play that club up there that we played a lot. When we first heard it on the record next to the other bands, and we were like, man, we got screwed. It was, you just kind of, probably everybody on the record, when you do a compilation, they're like, oh, we sound worse than everybody else, but I think that's probably real. And John would probably still remember that feeling of like, man, this doesn't bite like it's supposed to, we're kind of like, but it's not a heavy song, so it's understandable, I guess. But getting on it, contrast that with 5 seconds later, we're incredibly blessed to be on any compilation. Like,
Yeah.
we still were so new, and we weren't sitting around prima donnas going like, oh, we need to be on bigger records, or we can't believe they sold us out. Really very little of that at all. It was more, dang it, we just don't sound different enough, heavy enough, So I remember those feelings being around that record coming out. We were excited to be on it, and then you just kind of, compilations are always a little bit of a downer.
Yeah. And coming into Hey You, the recording process of it, how different was it from the first album with the synthesizers and everything else?
Yeah, well, night and day in that area, because we had no sense on the first one really, and John would go in and play the acoustic piano in Studio C on the first record, and we were not a band hardly. Second record, John and Corey came prepared, and I was very unprepared, and they did a lot of building tracks, and there'd be days of just them. And I mean, Trey and I would be present and excited, and feedbacks and stuff like that, but there was a lot more programming to do on that record. And so yeah, night and day difference on the process. And John's a very fast learner he's just a natural, nearly a savant really, on music and memory and stuff. And so he was alive and just crushing it, and was ready for that record more than anything. And yeah, that one also, the single, I'm trying to think of how More Faithful came about. Because there was some acoustic playing, which I'm pretty sure Dana Key helped on that as well. It's uncredited. He also did that on Saturn. Dana played acoustic. I don't know if I've ever told this story before, but on the first record, Saturn, I remember specifically, they called me while at work and said, hey, Dana called me. He said, hey, I just recorded the acoustic on Saturn. No offense. I'm calling you to let you know I did it, because I've spent so much time working acoustic that I just wanted to get something on there and come in and see what you think. If you don't like it, you can play it, all that stuff, but it's a nice way of saying I'm better than you on acoustic. I mean, yeah, which is fine. It's accurate, right? But so with More Faithful, I remember spending hours and hours doing those very simple strums, and so my part was, not my specialty, I would say, on that record. But the things, the little little cool things like the types of chords being used and Locked in a Cage, and Hey You I Love Your Soul, having different different stuff in there. And then coming down, I think I told you about email is one of my favorite things that didn't quite hit, but yeah, it was even Scarecrow ended up not liking how digital it is compared to like heavy. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. It just was for me a departure from what I loved, and it was moving into John and Corey showing that they really had it, which is great.
And the coming into the tour, how different or more like how difficult was it for you to learn or relearn or adapt the guitar parts on record, including whatever you may have synthesized or with, because I understand that you have played a guitar synth on the record.
Yeah.
And how was it to adapt, maybe relearn, or maybe recreate those parts for the tour, for the live versions?
Live versions, what I mostly did was took the synth on tour, and I had basically the synth pickup and my regular pickups on my Stratomonster for some of that, where the Roland is on some kind of crazy patch like saxophone or something, but it was a mix of the sound through the Rivera head, so that my sound was basically there wasn't a second channel. I didn't want to bring a stereo setup or anything, and again, sort of punk rock attitude. Whether that was good or not, I don't know. Nobody ever told me. Nobody ever was mad at me about it, I don't think. But anyway, it was just my tone was electronic-y and sort of dive over in-ish. And so I played more with that sound. I would hit the guitar synth on and off, and I guess I must have. It's faded from my memory, but I must have had my GMP wired up with the synth at some point as well. I'm remembering now modifying all the distance away from the pickup on the round top, as that was a pain, but yeah. So that was basically it. I mean, the parts, I didn't have that many parts, and we had a keyboard player now, and we had tracks now. Mm-hmm. So I kind of probably my job stayed the same or went down a little as far as busyness, and I was able to just incorporate that digital sound into the guitar tone.
Listening to the Corner Store 99 show, you hear Promise Blender being a little bit more synth driven. It has a little bit of that, so to speak, Hey You readaptation into the tour.
Yeah.
Was there more of that for the first album songs? Were more songs, say, were modified live to sound more like the Hey You sound, or were more of them? Did they stay the same mostly?
I would say probably stay the same mostly. It's a good question for Corey, because I'm not sure what she was always doing on that, but I feel like there was even some moments, I may be wrong on this, easily verifiable, is where Corey was like almost left the stage or something, like for Beautiful Robe or something,
Mm-hmm.
but there wasn't like a significant part, I don't think. Maybe she did write parts and I don't remember it at this point, but our intention was play those all out heavy, and she hadn't learned electric guitar at the time, I don't think. So my memory is it was sort of, mostly in my time in the band, still the 3-piece plus a synth player, a little bit, a little bit, but I mean, she was fully in the band, and that was totally great. That's where things needed to be, and we're good. But for some of those older songs, we maybe didn't play them as much. And she probably had, she must have had a part for Safe With You, just accenting stuff. And the songs that she might have had I Can. She might have laid down a chord at the beginning. I don't remember, honestly.
What do you remember about the release party for Hey You?
Almost nothing. I'm not even sure. No, I'm not sure where it was even.
Because I was going through the old site on the Wayback Machine, and there's the announcement for the release party, and after there was a soundbite of the crowd or something. I don't know if it was the whole thing because I can't access it anymore, and I've been wanting to get information on that, but it's,
Okay.
it's okay. And so 98, we have the album comes out in April, and then the tour itself, the Love Your Soul tour itself, doesn't start until June or July. What was the difference between that tour and the first tour?
Well, we were celebrities. No, I'm just kidding. No, well, GMA was way different. April, we were well received. Still people hadn't never heard of Skillet at that point, and that was shocking to us because most of our days were spent around people really loving the band at that point.
Mhm.
Second record, festivals were a good step up. I think we played main stage afternoons.
Mhm.
It's still, Christian music was still just wrestling with heavy music still, a little bit. So you would go for we Skillet was always in the middle, man. If you had the POD show and you're like the sellout band, you're like the CCM band at a POD show, and then you'd be at a festival and you're like too heavy for the soccer moms, and so we were constantly in between, but people knew us at that point. I think we were, but you always feel like you're breaking a new audience. You can have 250 panheads at that point going crazy, and then 2,000 lawn chairs empty behind them, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's like, man, we need to win over some moms and dads or something. You just wish you weren't just there with them waiting for the newsboys to come on. So it's a thankless middle ground, but we had our real fans at that point, so it was kind of more fun to play the smaller stages where people were like ballistic for us. Atlanta Fest, we might have even got made stage, but this is the Southeast. People they knew us from all our touring, and they were driving 10 hours from North Carolina to come see us and stuff. It was like, you're the reason we're at this festival. That was 98.
Yeah.
Oh, Sunshine Festival, dude.
Yeah.
That was our jam. I mean, Sunshine Festival was unglued. We were as big a show as you could have, and we were like at 5 o'clock. We just like, you guys missed it because we could have torn the house down, a couple hours from now.
And did you have any favorite songs from Hey You to play live? I don't know if I asked you this already on the email.
Well, Locked in a Cage has such a slow build up. It's nice to feel the crowd getting, they sing along and they're just waiting for it to hit,
Mhm.
I mean, personally, I loved Scarecrow and Coming Down, which are like underdogs on that record, because it's more meaningful when you write the lyrics and stuff. Poor was, I don't, and also just the ministry part of the Psalm 63 song, which I'm trying to remember what the name of it even is right now. But there's like there's a ministry side. More Faithful is just not my jam, but that's fine. Probably the heavy stuff, this like Dive Over In When It's Feeling Right and Poor, and Hey You, Locked in a Cage, just kind of about the same. I don't know that I had a favorite. Locked in a Cage was kind of special because Memphis, it came out on the radio, and it came out secular radio in Memphis. And so we would be driving around town. I don't know if anybody's talked about this much. We played some secular venues, including a big music festival in Memphis, huge music festival. And we drive around town and people were like, they heard us on 96X. And they had a whole different interpretation of Locked in a Cage. They had no concept of it being God.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about, bondage. So we would have people stop us with our Skillet trailer and be like, dude, you guys effing bleep, 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 blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, alrighty, locked in the cage, tie me down. I was like, okay. So fans love Locked in the Cage so much. You kind of feed off the audience. That's probably my favorite, I guess.
Yeah, Locked in the Cage. If you look at the records, it stayed on the set list actually until 2005. So yeah, a good run if you ask me.
Yeah, it's a good song.
Yeah, it's great. And as a musician, if you learn it either it's on bass or on guitar or on drums, it's a great song to play.
Yeah,
it's fun. What always throws me off about Black and Cage is that little at the second tail end of the chorus that goes between G sharp, G, and back to G sharp. Sometimes it throws me off a little bit, but it's a little thing, but it's great to just to listen. And I think that song has one of your best solos, in my opinion.
Oh, cool. Well, I need to listen to it again. I've really, it's been a while since I sat with Hey You. I need to again. You're going to get me on it this weekend, just by talking about it, because it's been too long.
Yeah.
That one I played Scarecrow for a show with a Skillet friend of mine for her thing last May, but I didn't really remember the chords until she brought the tab in.
And let me ask about, we're coming into 99 and you had the first Europe tour. How was that?
It was fun. We got everything stolen the first night. And I don't know if people have talked enough about that tour, but man, now one of my closest friends today is Tim Cheshire, who was the opening band and booked those shows in Glasgow and across the UK. Mm-hmm. He booked the shows, and his band Superhero opened, and we're like best friends. I was in his wedding, best man, last May. But we got everything stolen, which is so Glasgow. Glasgow's like the Memphis of UK. But and we got some of it back. But we played a couple shows. Corey on a little Casio borrowed, me on a borrowed guitar, everything borrowed, and like we played some hard shows in the UK, but we got everything back eventually. And to this day, a lot of people, friends of ours that were in our church network was global from the beginning I was talking about. So some of those people saw us for the first time and building a following there. And then that was the same trip we did Germany, I would guess, the Christmas rock night and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just wish you had more time. If you're in ministry and you're touring, you wish you had more time to spend with everybody that's there. It kind of just, it's why people write these road songs. They usually write them about some groupie, but we didn't do that. So it's somehow, it's just those songs about how cool it is to meet people around the world who are just like you. They just happen to speak a different language and be in this little village or whatever. Or they remind you of your best friend back home or your family, whatever. It opens your mind. If you're open to it, it opens your mind up to being a person that just marvels at creation and caring for people more. If you can keep in a good space, if you have spiritual practice on tour and you're doing well with God, it's a great experience being overseas, because we also get to do incredible stuff. I'll never stop making fun of John not wanting to go do really cool stuff while on tour, because compared to me, I'm like a travel lust person, a wanderlust, and like I'm like, man, let's go do this and that. Me and Trey would go do stuff, and John was just, I mean, his mind was in the music and married and all that. But we go to San Francisco, and he'd just like go to the mall, and I'm like, dude, we're going to the woods and the Bay Bridge and the freaking, I'm sure it's different now, but he just always was on a different concentration point with Skillet. So I was always adventurous, making relationships. Work, I started a school in Germany and work in the UK still to this day with people that saw Skillet from '98, and '99, and to this day, I'm running a school in Stoke-on-Trent for bands and for media people, because there's not many people doing this, honestly. And then there's not many people doing it consistently for decades and keeping their life together, and trusting God on stuff. It's hard. So makes you kinder and also more resilient getting there out on the road and meeting people from other places, because you begin to respect the promoters, the radio guys and girls, but mostly guys who are like, guys like yourself, man, who are like, this is important. This is good. I'm going to put some time into it. I'm sure you're paid big bucks for this, but doing this interview, you probably get, a couple $1,000, but just kidding. But those people out there that are, you just get more grateful for people that love the music to happen. And so, sorry, I could talk forever about that. My whole life is about gratitude, and
I understand. Does it ever blow your mind that you're still in business relations and personal relations with people who saw you back then as a part of a band, and now you're this businessman? Does it ever get you like, wow, this is amazing what God can do?
Yeah. Well, it's on several. I recognize it on a lot of levels. One, we could have never ever been signed or played or done anything other than, I have friends here locally who I also have a relationship with who still are playing in side bands. Same guys that played on the stage at 704B, and they're still playing some songs, and they're still great guys. So huge honor to do all that, and then crazy part is that John and Corey continued decades of doing the work. I haven't done any of that work for 25 years, so I'm a beneficiary of their work and their just future connected to it. I'm blessed to be a part of everything they do and have done. And but again, when you get the experience of, John's just another guy as well. It's like to me, the best place to be is that you're not intimidated by or overly, worshiping at celebrity, because the whole concept is just barely there. One, John gets in a car accident in 2001 and hurts his hand. It's like, okay, we've never had that. 20 years ago. I mean, literally, if you're grateful in your life, you just recognize that people go to work every day. Some people are writing songs and having to do, talk backs to 10,000 fans and all this. Other people are making all that happen. And I love my decision, never regret my decision to not be on tour and to be helping other people see if music's the right place for them. And you just, I'm now part of the people who, kind of get it. Once a week, somebody's like, "Oh my God, you're Ken from, you're Skillet. Oh my," they're stunned about who I am. I'm like, it's fine. All I did was play guitar and do what God said, and other people did all the work all around us. So many people part of that. So, you either be grateful or you just keep on looking for something for yourself. And I know some of those guys too that they weren't very good on tour 30 years ago, and they're probably, sadly still, I know a couple will come to mind, just like people I wouldn't spend 5 minutes with, because it's about you, and that's not for everything, I look at the comments about John and I'm like, I immediately know who doesn't know John, because he's not that guy, but anyway, uh, yes, a complete honor to do it. And it's weird to have people still doing work, decades later. What's weirder is still having the same, like, I could get out and play My Beautiful Road right now and freak out and jump around at an advanced age, shall we say. But it's like, I see why, the Rolling Stones get out and do it. U2 keeps playing because that never dies. Your heart's for music, man. You gotta play. And sorry, it's you just have to still enjoy playing music, still enjoy people getting impacted by music. So
99 also came with your guy, the first ever performance at Cornerstone, which was a huge youth Christian music festival. I don't know if it was the biggest, but I think it was. What was that for you, for the band? What was the uh, the uh, the thoughts on the vibe coming into the show?
this was for a Cornerstone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other weird thing about Skillet is we have history in Christian music because Dana and Eddie are the 70s and 80s guys that did music, right? And Rick Miller, although he was never a musician, he did radio shows early 80s and all the festivals and would promote shows in the 70s. He introduced them, DeGarmo and Keith, to their first manager. It became their manager, Dan Brock.
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally, our history goes back. There's a reason I'm saying this, because Cornerstone goes back to the 70s. Res Band goes back to the 70s. Glenn Kaiser is on my board of my advisory board of Visible Music College, like Res Band guy, 50 years in ministry, playing the blues. And before I tell you about Cornerstone, I'll just say at Kingdom Bound Festival up in New York, we played a show to not many people, to pretty good. It was a small stage, and we loved Kingdom Bound, and the fans in Western New York are some of the rock people. They were there, and they showed up, and we played a great show. Well, 2 hours later, Glenn Kaiser played a show, and Glenn Kaiser was probably in his 50s or something. Nobody came, and me and John are sitting on the asphalt. Literally, there's almost nobody at a stage. We're sitting there on the asphalt, and Glenn knew us because we came to visit him up in Res Band Towers and all that stuff, and just Japuza that puts on Cornerstone Festival. We were behind the scenes for years with Cornerstone. We knew the guys. We had met them. Rick had brought us up to meet the guys who decide whose bands go on the stage, but we were not cool enough as Skillet to be in their world, because their world was the Blamed and the SoCal punk rock bands and the LSU and Michael Knott and all the Sixpence, the people that are on the real outside. We were somehow grafted into this Nashville type scene around those guys, to where it took till 99 for us to be allowed in the tent, if you will. So that's behind the scenes stuff. In one sense, this is the battle that just needs to be an open tent. And that's what Cornerstone ultimately was. But you got to imagine these Japuza guys who live in community and they're like hippies deciding to put Skillet on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, we don't like them as much as all these weird other guys. And some of those bands are amazing in every way. Some of those bands I question, where is the edge of Christian music? All that. Who cares, really? It's their festival. But that's who they're attracting, is kids who are on the edge, and giving Skillet a platform. And they since then played main stage, right? And they Cornerstone, I guess, is gone now, but that was the open door to the ministry of Skillet, which honestly to this day, I will stand on every lineup, every show, every record is an attempt to bring the Holy Spirit to believers and non-believers alike, people that need somebody to come rescue them, you know. And so that message was brought in the most hot environment I've ever stood in Forum 2 tent or whatever it was, Forum 1. And I'm a robot. I don't sweat. John would go through 3 sets of clothes in the time. I'm like a whatever. I just don't sweat. 10 drops, drip, drip, drip off my hands trying to play guitar in that festival show. I don't know if there's a recording of it.
There's audio, but there's no video.
Oh, that's right. I was trying to hear it that night a few weeks ago. Yeah. So I have it clearly in my head. It was so hot. Corey threw up and was like, probably about to pass out. I nearly passed out one show at a festival in Arizona, but there was a full tent, and the tent was sweating. Everybody was sweating, and we crushed their faces for an hour in that show.
Yeah.
And, so that was a great starting. I never got to play some of those festivals on the big stage, but Cornerstone, it was a tough one to break, man.
Yeah, and Cornerstone, when you listen to the show, I haven't heard any other shows from your time in the band because there isn't any so far. But listening to it, I think it's probably one of the most intense Skillet shows that I ever listened to, and it really does sound like you guys had something to prove with the intensity, even if it was on a tent that was super hot. The intensity doesn't go down at all, and it's like you guys had something to prove, and the audience is proving it for you, singing along and clapping and cheering. It's an amazing show.
Yeah, I think that's something to prove is probably right. I would say it was a long time coming. We know all the guys behind the scenes. We respect, but aren't like them. Like we're not hippies, or whatever. We're not the most edge, weird poetry guys. We're more straight in your face. And we had something to prove to be there on that scene. And we never tried to get into like the super cool Christian scene of any type, super CCM or super whatever. John's still that way today. He's like, it may seem like he's like in the middle of everything, but he measures everything he does with what do I and Skillet need to do that's helpful for the kingdom. And well, it's good to hear that it's got intensity. I'll check it out at some point, and I'll be looking for audio and video here. I know I have a VHS of Skillet shows from the first years. I know I do. So that's coming for your listeners.
And let me ask this: when was it? Not in a specific date, but when was it that God told you, "Okay, it's time to move on to other things"?
I think it, sort of that summer of '99. It was not. I think we had kind of a conversation in January where it was like, "Hey, this is getting hard. This is how I think about stuff. And if we're going to write another record, I'm not sure we had decided to do the worship record yet. I don't know the timing, but I feel like it was fairly late that we did decide. Like, hey, there was one trip, and I'm trying to remember what trip it was. They always say you can tell when the band member shows up to the tour bus and they've had a kid, and they show up with that look in their eyes. You're like, they're not long for the tour. They're not going to be here much longer. These definitely side guys. But this was everything, right? This was my whole everything. And Skillet was on its way to being great. I think it was probably that international tour that really solidified, like, this is really me. Like John wasn't particularly like, yay, Germany, and they wrote the songs and they were still doing really, really well. And I was still not writing, still still being the band manager, which, if I could go back and do it and be taken care of, and I could have been a better artist probably or whatever, but I got double pneumonia. I played shows when I was sick, and I was, just working hard, driving a lot still and all that. But that global tour, I would say the UK tour would be where I'm like, I see this more. I would like to help people get out of the first stage of starting a Christian band, still loving the church, knowing the word, having a mission and a purpose, not getting caught up in the crap, and being better players. I think it's possible to do all that. And I thought, some kind of discipleship program or something that I'd been through or something. I think too much of myself probably in the way of wanting to have influence and believing I can kind of see it quickly. And by early summer at least, I was like, hey guys, I'm not going to do the tour, the worship tour. You need to find somebody. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and start. I had already started. I started like a homeschool art school where we teach lessons and stuff, and just aggregating some friends to do some. I don't like teaching guitar, but I was like, I'll teach guitar. I'll just build a school for kids. But my mission before Skillet was ultimately to teach college and be an undercover discipleship guy. My plan was, in Vancouver or Seattle area, all that stuff I love out there. But so I thought this is it. Something here. Anybody can play guitar, those parts. Anybody can learn and play guitar. What you guys don't need my leadership anymore. You're going to be great. You're going to be fine. This is going somewhere. Let me pull out now and let you guys, not wrestle for the front spot or kind of, yeah. And my 3-year-old was at home, man, and about to be 3. I was like, I would come home to him and I'd just be like, I'm missing some days here, too many days. Yeah. So it's kind of combination of the next record is going to be industrial. The parts are playable. I never was the best guitar player, but I was giving a lot to the creation. That's kind of settled down, and I miss my son. I can't ever get that time back. So pretty easy decision really in the end, and never regretted it. I still would love to play shows, but I never would want to. I would love to play shows, but I wouldn't really want to do the work of having a band, of really making a band break again. That's tough stuff.
And talk to me about your final show. That was August, I can remember the exact, I think 28th of 99. Your final show at Kai Music House.
Oh yeah.
And even in Skillet. What do you remember about that?
Well, my memory's not that great, man. We did the live record there, the worship record. We recorded that live, and then the last show, I think there's a video of that, somewhere.
I know there is, but I can't find it.
Yeah, there was somebody that had a lot of this. There's a couple people around here who I know as we start working together, me and you, that I think have I know they have like a lot of the beep and finger paint stuff like that, urgent cry. But yeah, I couldn't tell you much about the show, man. It's kind of a blur. I would say Skillet always did me well, including, you have bands that are like, even their friends, and they end up having managers lawyer up to figure out how to do a severance agreements and stuff. And we just like, Rick wrote something up and John and I were like, that's cool, man. Just, percentage of stuff from the old records, shameless plug, buy the old records. I'll make 17 cents, but, in a diminishing part of recognizing I helped start the band. I know that Skillet, with John Cooper, probably would have been an artist no matter what, but Skillet wouldn't have made it without me. I know that. So I left that last show being like, man, these guys are in a good place. I've done all I think I can do, and I think I can do better starting more skillets, and the mission, the so few people working on this exact issue makes me still to this day get up in the morning and be like, man, nobody's encouraging the crazy keyboard guitar playing 19-year-old girl from Myanmar who I've got in my head who plays like metal mixed with folk music. For Christ, nobody knows that girl like I do, and those kind of bands, nobody gets that. And so I'm like, I was blessed to play when I did, and I don't remember much about that night other than a just great feeling, good send off, solid relationships all the way through. I kept doing some marketing for the band and some mailing list stuff. I always try to take care of people administratively because I'm weirdly bent for songwriting and administration or data. It's crazy. You haven't seen that yet because I haven't been able to touch some archives, but I'm gonna show you. I'll show you how I do spreadsheets.
And yeah, you left the band, but you didn't quite leave the organization as a whole because you stayed as the webmaster, I believe.
Yeah.
You managed the website, you managed the emails, but did you help train Alistair, that was temporary replacement, and then Kevin, or was that more like, nah, I don't, you can figure out yourself, you can figure out my part yourself?
Oh, no. I hung out with Alistair. He eventually went to Visible Music College as well. Alistair, I showed him parts, but he mostly did worship, which was fairly simple. But we had made that record. There's a couple things that I think that's like, boy, the most underappreciated record in Christian music. But Be Glorified is such a good song to this day. But Lord Jesus be glorified, whatever it is. But so I helped him out a little bit on. I think we shared gear and stuff for the tour and just sort of helped him flow right in. And when Kevin came along, Kevin was already playing with bands in Nashville and kind of a side guy a little bit. He's kind of expected to be, he was more of a pro. Alistair was just getting started.
Mm-hmm.
So Kevin, I may have showed a couple things, but certainly not much. He was pretty confident on his own.
And then Urban Worship released on next year on 2000. And it saw you and Trey back for the last 3 songs, which included Save With You. How was that? How did they reach out to you to ask you, hey, we would like you to play with us on these last 3 songs, bring the old gang together for one last show, and put it on the record?
From what I remember, now this is like super. Include this warning if you use this audio, because I remember it like this. The original band, the 4 of us, did an entire live show of everything, and then before we ever met Kevin, right? This is my memory of it. We did a live show at the Kai and invited people there. There's probably video of it, and we did a worship night where we did all the stuff, and that feels like more of my last show. And I don't remember when that was, before the last show or whatever. I think it's prior to the actual leaving of Skillet. It was something of the, summer of '99 or something, or May of '90 or something, So that was in the can, and then Kevin played over the top of my parts when he got in the band. So I think it's the other way around.
Oh.
But big disclaimer. This is only how I remember it. I wasn't involved when they finally made the record. It wasn't like they asked me to get back together to make that record. It was, now it may have been that they said we're gonna finally do a worship record, and I'm just remembering that I played on the whole night. But I feel like we were doing that already, and I played on that whole record. Now they may have substituted out. I know they substituted out a lot of parts because you can tell, because it's Kevin's very precise and processed style that's there on the record. You know, but I think it was over parts that I had already recorded. You know, so like subbing me out and putting them in, which to be fair, I'm a live messy player and probably was needed, you know, or just decided to do. But they I believe I was there for the whole show. We recorded it prior to my leaving, and then they made the record in totality, and I wasn't really engaged. I was just behind the scenes, and I was building a school. By that time, I was starting to build the college side. So
What I do know about the whole worship tour thing is that it kept getting pushed back. It was an announcement in '98, we're going to do this worship tour, we're going to do the worship album. And then '99, we are still doing it, but not by the date we say we were going to do it. And then Invincible came about, and then Art and Worship finally released on middle of 2000. I don't know the exact date.
yeah,
But I do know that while you were in the band, it kept getting pushed back and back. And I don't know, there was the worship tour, which you weren't part of by that
yeah,
point. But as far as I know, that's what's on the old website, and I really don't know if there was actually a recording with you and Trey officially. But I'll take your word for it, honestly, because I wasn't there. You were.
yes. Well, I think I was. Sadly, I think I was. I think John will remember all this stuff. Obviously, a lot of people remember better than me. It's not my strength, but I feel like it was in the plan all along. I think maybe even early summer we decided, hey, I'm going to leave the band. This would be a great time to do a worship tour. Anybody can play worship music better than be Skillet, and it was a little last minute, maybe I even caused them some trouble. I don't know, to leave too late. I never heard bad stuff about it, but you never know. People have memories of stuff that's different, but yeah, it's interesting to know that it was planned so long. We really thought it was different. This was Delirious came out with the defining worship record of our time, really, during these years, and in my mind, much more than Chris Tomlin or anything, the UK worship stuff totally changed the world. To where we are today. We kind of didn't change it much since then, but those guys were coming out with worship stuff, and we were like, we're doing this ever since we started playing. We were doing worship and ministry, but it's unfortunate. It kind of got maybe delayed into a place where it wasn't as important, and it became more commercial. More commercial records came about so quick. The heavy worship. Well, I think Petra had done a worship record 8 years before, probably. I don't know.
And okay, it's the turn of the century. We're in the year 2000, and Visible is starting. I want to ask, why the name Visible? Why did you choose that name?
Okay, this is a tie-in to Skillet. Ready? Matt Browning, who was the keyboard player for 5 minutes, and he had a band. By the time '99 came around, he had a band. He was basically a solo electronic music artist called Visible Community. It was based on Bonhoeffer's Cost of Discipleship, Chapter 6, the visible community. The church is the visible community outside the walls of the church, salt and light to the world. Bonhoeffer is a hero of ours, and I went and asked him. I said, "Do you mind if I'm starting a college, a program? Do you mind if we call it Visible Community School of Music and Worship Arts?" We were doing painting and sculpting and dance and all that stuff. And he was cool. Visible Community. It's Bonhoeffer. I'm not going to ever be an artist. We were friends. And so that's how it came about. It's really Visible is the Christian ministry word for my last 26 years. Is as a Christian, we should be visible. And subtly, that's what I've had to defend it 1,000 times. Everybody gets it wrong, and they think it's a school for the blind and all that stuff. But it's really Bonhoeffer, and I think it's a timely it was a good time to start the school. 1,800 people have come through, and many been trained, and many out there playing music. Most notably, Terry and Bass, who's awesome. I don't know if you know, in Christian music, she sang with Toby Mac up until recently. Is her, and
Oh,
she's really her own artist. IamTarian.com. Crazy talent. Just follow my feed. I gush on her all the time. She's amazing. She's a Visible kid. But anyway, yeah. So Visible is us being salt and light to the world. That's a good reason to do music,
and the first iteration of the college was a lot smaller than what it is now. How did you secure that place to start teaching?
Well, this was Rick's building. Actually, it's sort of Rick Miller yet again. I came off the road. He and I visited a school in England that had just started, and we said, I think we could do this. And I wrote the curriculum and the design, and sort of different than them, more industry related as well. And I just thought we should always have worship and industry together, and the same people, the support. This shows how much I love the support people, the radio people, the archive people. It's like music business is ministry, music leadership is ministry, playing drums is ministry, audio ministry. And so the first iteration was just, I went to those same festivals as Skillet was at the festival playing the next summer, and I went to those festivals personally and set up a booth, a table, and handed out flyers. Sometimes people were like, wait, what are you doing? Like, they were like major fans, right? Other people still didn't know Skillets, people didn't know anything. But I was recruiting students to a school that didn't exist yet. And, but it was the vision for helping people get started doing music for God in a way that was also school. And it's a tough sell. Now we have, just to say, you say it was way different, all that. We're just about back around to that small community type feel again, because we built multiple campuses, multiple countries, blah, 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 all these 1,000 people through, and working with all kinds of big other church networks. But in the end, it's really about community. We have about 40 students, and people still get mad because John screams on a Christmas tune. What are we even doing, people? I mean, I grew up when drums were satanic in a church. Like, let's not go back there. It's, to me, the church is slow to learn. So we're back to 40 students, small staff, just making it work for those who get it, who want to do ministry with music in any style of music.
And touching back, it's now 2002, and I have the excitement. It's October 11th, 2002. Their band is already on the band, but when they're playing on the Christian College, you play with them one more time. You play I Can with them. How was that like? What do you remember you coming on stage with them for that last song one more time?
Yeah, well, it's Crichton College. We were partners as a school. We were partners with Crichton College, and so I knew all those people real well. The show was coming to Crichton, and I don't know who asked who. I usually never, like, maybe somebody at the school said, "Hey, ask John if you could play." I don't remember, but what I do remember, and you're a musician, right? You're playing.
Yeah.
This is what actually happened. I had, I'm in the middle of doing college. I don't play a lot of shows. I just have my little 3-piece band, the Deep, which was the same guys before and after, sort of after Skillet. And I got there to the show with one pick in my pocket. And right before I went on, I'm getting ready backstage. I'm standing on these choir risers or something, maybe even at the back of the stage, about to walk on. I dropped my one pick through the the wall and the choir loft right there. I dropped it right down a hole, gone forever. And I pulled a quarter out of my pocket and played that whole show with a quarter. Or that whole song, one song, which I always thought was I used to play that way in my punk rock days for like a cool sound. I would do a lot of cool effects, but I'm glad I had a quarter back then. I don't have any coins anymore, but that song, if you hear it, if it sounds like I'm not very clean, it's probably because I'm playing with a quarter.
Yeah, we have pictures of that show, and we have the audio that one of the students, Will Norris, recorded at the time. He asked permission to hook up his laptop to the soundboard and recorded the song. And yeah, you can tell that I always chucked it up to you, just remembering. Not it has been 2 years, 3 years. I understand that if you don't play the way you played in 1999, but knowing that it's because you played with a quarter, it just makes it maybe a little bit more special.
Yeah. It was probably messy already, but yeah, I hadn't played it in a while, but yeah.
And looking back on this last 26 years as the director, headmaster, I don't know what to call you, of Visible Music College.
Yeah.
Out of all the kids that came and went, all of the things that you experienced, all the milestones, what would you say is your proudest achievement with Visible?
Proudest achievement. I would say my proudest achievement can't really be a single person, but I think it's giving, it's probably to do with the staff. And some of the, a lot of the staff were students at one time. They would be students, then they would do stuff. My greatest achievement as the president of Visible Music College is that 100 times, 200 times, 300 times, hundreds of times, I gave somebody encouragement and a place for them to break through in their life with God and with music. And there's no replacement for that, because I posted about this morning on a text about Memphis musicians. Like Craig Brewer, famous director, said, why don't you just support local musicians? Why don't you just do that? And I'm like, it takes so little to encourage, and and our system, and me personally, and our passionate staff, man, without a place to exercise your gifts and to read the word together, pray together, and write music together from your heart, your heartbreaking stories, and fix your life because you're close to the Holy Spirit. It's just being a place for musicians to be actualized, to be set free, to be encouraged. I mean, man, no better achievement than that. There's nothing. I can think of dozens of people in my mind right now. They met their wife there. They broke through with their life with God there. They had all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it's the people in the end. That's the only stuff that lasts. So come and let your audience know if they're young. I didn't even start Skillet till my late 20s. And still powerful years with them and powerful years since. Just try to be an encourager. Sorry, I'm starting to preach, but that's my biggest blessing, is making a space for people.
Amen. And coming into the 30th anniversary, Skillet, 30 years strong. People came, people went. Fans came and went. Some stayed, some fell out of love with the band, whatever. Musicians were inspired, myself included. And there's a whole lot of people that are either 50 years old, 40 years old, my age, I'm 26. I'm younger than the band. and I'm still so devoted to the history, and so many of us are so devoted to the history. How, how does that make you feel that your contribution to the band is still so respected and so admired by by people who weren't even alive when the band started?
Yeah, it's amazing. There's 10-year-olds that are friends, kids, or that love Skillet, and I sign a shirt about every month. Like, hey, I'm not in the band, right? I haven't been in the band since you've been alive. But it's an honor. It's a testimony to John's resilience and keeping it going, because obviously could have stopped at any point. In fact, I know for a fact they were trying to decide, are we John and Corey or are we Skillet? Because you get older and you're like, Skillet, such a hard touring, heavy band, all the stuff. You have to decide to keep doing it. It's I think I believe in the history of Christian music, at least in these 30 years for sure, and probably into the future. Skillet's held a place of integrity and ministry, and something that we started with, the Holy Spirit, just been in it with the band ever since. And people can get mad about John's views or John's words, or the music is consistent. I would say John has a consistent mission that is been amazingly held to, whether I love every song or not. I love seeing, just watch the Christmas song and listen to the scream. He finally outscreamed me. Like, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But, it's a part of history, I think, important and will be important because God put it together and some people obeyed. And it's sort of almost that easy. That's why you recognize it in the music. I don't know if that's spiritual or what. I don't know what it is really, but it's hard to tell. I'm so close to it. When I listen to the songs, I have a lot of memories about the songs, of actual experience with them, and I wish I could transplant that to people. Here's what we were doing. But the greatest story is that we were just guys sold out to the Lord, and we did it because we wanted to, and we did it for especially during my time, almost no money. Almost no money. It's obscene how little money was involved. It was groundbreaking. Every church, we were the first show they ever had. Every church. It was like, we don't ever do rock shows, but we know you guys love the Lord. And and then one more tiny thing, my legacy, and one of the reasons I think that there's a receptivity to Skillet is also me. And the reason I have any significance, if I did, is the relationships I made with radio guys, label guys, booking agents, all these. The secretary at the church, she ended up owning a label. Like all these people they stay around music, and my reputation is impeccable in Nashville. Now, nobody cares much what I do or don't do, and nobody cares about college. I will tell you that, but because it's like a different world, But reputation, absolutely perfect. And John really, generally saying he's had more opportunity to, have a bad day in front of more people in the industry. So he's probably got a few people don't care, but that reputation happens because we care about people, and that whole thing I've been talking about the whole time. The way I'm going to answer with the thing that's important is the relationships, and it always will be till we're done, till we're gone. Yeah.
And just to ask this as a fan, maybe also some musicians, if you could get together with John and Trey and sit down and say, hey, for the fun of it, let's jam together one more time. No strings attached, no nothing, just us three, like the way we started. What song would you suggest to them to play if that scenario happened?
Mm-hmm. Well, either Safe with You or My Beautiful Road, depending on what because the Blocka Blocka on My Beautiful Robe that's classic. That Trey will remember that his whole life because he was made to play that in the studio. Like he wasn't natural Trey. And the passion, I would guess one of them might say something different, but I would be like, man, oh, I forget, we never said anything about Gasoline, man. People loved Gasoline. It's fine, it's fun to play, but yeah, shooting the video in our friend's warehouse. Well, yeah, I would say Safe With You would give us all like that's the place where we came together every night. In My Beautiful Robe, or if, I don't know that John would remember the words to Promise Blender, but probably he's got amazing memory. So yeah, I'd say first record probably. Some of the stuff that was peak Ken Trey John that was on the set list every night. Yeah, it'd be fun.
Yeah, I as a musician myself, I am trying to. I have this on the wraps. This is pretty much a exclusive look into my own things. Not that anybody cares, but besides the archive, I also am working on doing covers of all songs to try and release them as a little cover album. Not really on, I don't know, nothing big. Just me jamming to some old Skillet songs, trying to readapt them as they were live, because I really do like the live versions of some stuff. Like for example, the only clip that exists of My Beautiful Robe on 2005. It's a little bit sped up, but I really dig the speed. Or Promise Blender 99 with the synth added with Corey, or the syncopated chorus that had the open hi-hat, close hi-hat. I don't know if you remember that bit.
Oh,
instead of going just the chorus, yeah. Instead of it played and stopped playing. Yeah, it was a cut. Yeah.
okay.
And
Open hi-hats, like just lots of metal.
Yeah, stuff like that. And it's just that thing I really want to put into something that people can listen to, not just from the concert, because that's also special, but something that sounds not more professional, but something that's clearer, and something from a fan to fans. And I really do appreciate. I really do love Skillet as a band because it's the band that fueled me as a guitarist. I have a 5-string bass because of John.
Yeah.
And I really do love this band. Even if I thought, I don't know, some of the later albums were a bit of a dud, or if I didn't like certain eras, or maybe I might disagree with John on that thing or two, but I still think the band is amazing, and I want to celebrate its history as much as I can by doing everything I can, collecting video, photos, interviewing you. I've interviewed Lori at this point also, and I think it's amazing the history that it's gone unappreciated by newer fans. But my part of my mission is just bringing that to the newer fans that may not have listened to any of the older stuff, or just disregarding them. It just sounds sounds like 98. I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, if you get a group together to be like a Skillet cover band from the early years, I'll get you a tour in the States, and or I'll work with yeah, they have that, a lot of bands that just like play all the Doobie Brothers stuff or whatever. They're like Queen or whatever, they bring bands back. Happy to work with you on any project, kind of fun stuff. We'll see what happens with 30th anniversary. Skillet's never been much of a band to look back. They're really trying to always forge ahead with new ministry stuff and the message that people need to hear. But yeah, who knows? I'm happy to help you, and I'm excited to work with you, and I'd love to remember. So I'm here in my little 8,000 square foot warehouse full of all kind of stuff. I got we still have it. Never got rid of any instruments. They're all sitting here 20 feet away. But
Would you like to show maybe the fans?
Well, I can get the gold sparkle probably within reach, but it's going to be sadly probably 4 strings on it or something right now. So
It's a piece of history. I do have a picture of you with the sparkle at your in the middle of the tour. Let me just if I can show it to you.
Okay.
Let me see if I can.
While you find it, let me see if I can touch it real quick.
Okay.
If it's not too far down.
All right.
I didn't find it, but I do have my original Strat.
This is the one that we're talking about, the gold sparkle. There she is.
Yeah, look at that. I like that picture.
Yeah, I have a couple more. Let's see if I can share them. I'll just start sharing here for a second. I have, what else do we have? This is I think this is the one that got stolen.
Oh, my baby. Oh, yeah.
That was the semi-hollow body that I was asking you about. See the
Yeah. That's the only one I had. That was my main. That was the best guitar I ever owned. It's so good.
Beauty.
Yeah, man, I love that guitar. I didn't expect to. I didn't have any hollow bodies, and I told you I had a bad experience with the 335 copy or whatever it was. But I forgot what that thing was called. Oh, Casino. Ugh, terrible. Anyway, that F-hole made it amazing. That was the gold one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think that was. Yeah. I remember dripping on it still.
We got John here, the Love Your Soul tour with Skyfar and Nancy Allen Kane.
Oh yeah, Skyfar.
We got Tori.
Oh, that was Albuquerque. That's where we got rained on. That's Creation West, right? Like daytime.
I believe so. Yeah.
That's we played after Bob and Larry from VeggieTales. I met them that day. That was the most important thing for my kid.
We got John here with the bass that survived the tour until 2006.
Okay.
Yeah, that beautiful bass. Honestly, we got Trey. I believe that's Creation as well. I'm not sure.
The blue tarp, that might be. That reminds me of Sunshine a little bit, but
Killer Shot here.
Maybe it was.
And that's about it that I have.
That's cool. Yeah, I'll have a lot once we start working a little more together. This I just brought out my Strata Monster that I do have. It's not even strung up right now.
She's beautiful.
But this is my sweet. Oh, and you're a musician. You were asking about the tuning.
Yeah.
This is a Kaler that I put in. I put it in myself with a screwdriver. Just I had no. I was 19. Like I put in. I hammered this hole out with a screwdriver and stripped this whole thing down. But I would just put some graphite on the G string, drop it detuning, and it was in tune. Crazy. I don't know how that worked.
Wow.
That was the only string that would kind of bind up and go a little bit weird. But with graphite in there, I would detune it in the middle of a song and just go with it. So, something you just said. What was the story of that? I had another thought while you were showing that. Anyway, yeah, we'll get some more stuff together. I was gonna say, if you know anybody who you were talking about John's bass, this would be a mission. If anybody that's within your reach was at the Orlando show where John played Promise Blender, the very first downbeat of the chorus, the bass, it was a Koa wood bass he had. This was early days now. We were at a park outside on a concrete deck, and the bass went straight through the strap, dropped to the ground, broke into 3 pieces. The song was completely over. It was like unbelievable, a pile of guitar at his feet. It was crazy. If anybody was there, there was like 20 people there. If you can reach that person, you know you've got some Skillet fans. But
Wow. That that was the 16 bass, right?
yeah,
Yeah, it must have been a heavy drop.
yeah, that was a monster. It went goodbye that day. I think I don't even remember what happened. John would probably remember if we even tried to fix it. It decimated instantly.
Do you have any stories like that happened to you dropping a guitar or something?
Well, my GMP, my pawn shop special had a flight case that it came through the end of a flight case during some flight sometime. I don't even know how you can do that. On tour, it was on tour. It was our guys handling it. And I got to a show and my guitar is sticking out the end of an anvil case. I'm like, what in the world did you guys do? Like, how? That's not even possible.
They always find a way. They'll always find a way.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, I have maybe one last question to ask you, and then we can call it a day because it's been 2 hours and a half. I don't want to take any more of your time.
Yeah, I was about to say about done here.
If you could sit, if you were to sit down with a guitar right now and jam a song, what would be the song that you would remember instantly how to play again of Skillet?
Well, I know Saturn because I played it a lot, you know. So I know I definitely could play Saturn instantly with the key change and everything. You know, we didn't mention Your Love Keeps Me Alive. That was the one I was thinking of. It was Psalm 63. And Suspended in You. Dude, I love Suspended in You. Somebody needs to give that one some credit.
Yeah.
I'm suspended in you. That to me, what those chords and those changes for the major sevens and stuff, I couldn't play that one right away, but like that's some good music. That's what I thought we could have done heavier, but with the industrial side, that, you know, I had already played industrial music in the early 80s, like this heavy E to B flat stuff, and I'm like, that's going to be tough. I don't like that, you know. Anyway, trying to think if anything would come back all the way. Yeah, if I was to sit down and try one right, I wouldn't trust myself. You heard me on I Can. It would take me a minute on Beautiful Robe to do the to find the little riff. Took me a second on the verse. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun one, but it's hard. It's a little bit hard, especially if you're playing standing up.
Yeah, I can play. Yeah, if I was to sit down and do it, I might. But yeah, it was hard. I guess probably Saturn's the only one. You know, I don't even really remember Paint. I played Boundaries recently, like say 6 months ago. I went through it and was like, man, I love this song so much. This is kind of the grungiest, you know, Skillet. I love that. I love that music, but it's too poetic for John. It's too vague. You know, John was more straight ahead, real understandable. We never really argued about that, but we sort of just wrote in different directions, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ken, it's been an honor to speak with you, to go through your history, to maybe help you remember stuff, and to go through the stuff. And it's going to be an honor to go through the actual stuff with you. Keep me posted with whatever you find, and any parting words for our dearest fans?
Well, one thing for sure, I'd love to hear you pronounce your name so I hear it one time, because you didn't say it on the front end.
Yeah, it's Facundo. It's I understand it's complicated.
Facundo.
Yeah.
Facundo. Okay, that's cool. I've never known anybody with that name. Is it fairly common or is it not?
Here, sort of, but on the rest of the world, no.
Yeah, I've never heard that. Okay. Well, I would just say, build those relationships with the Lord and with people around you. Don't spend any time making bad relationships. Just don't spend time doing it.
All right, Ken. It's been amazing as always, and thank you so much for your time. And I hope we can continue to work for the rest of the year, finding stuff. And thank you so much for offering to help. It's really invaluable for me. And it's like with you guys starting the event, this is completely for free. I don't get a penny from this, but I just do it for the love of the game, and I love it. And thank you so much for helping the Skillet archive.
Yeah, definitely. My pleasure, man. It's good to meet you and appreciate what you're doing.
So far.